Namaste, everyone. This podcast is going to be about the upcoming new moon in Dhanishta Nakshatra in sidereal Aquarius, which is going to take place on 17th of February. And that is going to be quite an unusual new moon. Why it will be unusual? Because Sun and Moon will meet on that day so close to each other that an actual solar eclipse will take place. Solar eclipse takes place every time when the conjunction between Sun and Moon, known as new moon, occurs very close to Rahu or Ketu, one of the lunar nodes. The Rahu and Ketu axis in the sky actually denotes this perfect alignment, you could say. And this is a really unique moment in time because what happens during eclipses is that for this short time window, we have this perfect alignment between two luminaries in our sky, Sun, Moon, and also our planet Earth. Now, this is a very significant thing, you see, even from perspective of how it affects our spiritual body. Sun and Moon, the two luminaries, the two givers of light in our sky, as explained by Sri Yukteswar, they actually reside in our third eye chakra. The earth itself, of course, represents our earthly plane of existence and also our root chakra. Rahu or Ketu, on the other hand, represent the forces, the ascending and descending force of the Kundalini Shakti. So what happens during every eclipse is that we have, for a period of time, this perfect alignment between third eye, the root chakra, and also the force of Kundalini Shakti, this spiritual potency in our spine, also becomes a little more awake. This is why the eclipse season is generally considered to be a very transformative time. A time of great transformation, a time when some of our karma becomes accelerated, also burned faster. But at the same time, if we lack a certain spiritual context, this may be sometimes a time of confusion, a time where it's harder to make sense out of things, because suddenly we have those karmic things and factors entering our lives in very unpredictable manners sometimes. And we don't always make very rational decisions based on that as well. Which is why, as much as eclipse season is known to be a great time for intensifying our spiritual efforts and sadhana, really benefiting from it by going deeper in meditation, at the same time, regarding our external life and pretty much all aspects of it, such as our relations, our career, our health, and everything else, we may experience turmoils there. You can compare eclipse, again, almost to this force of a cyclone, which kind of enters your life, and when it comes to the periphery of your life, the external life, it sometimes, brings a little bit of chaos there, a little bit of disorganization. So some karma can be burned. So some deep hidden issues can re-emerge so you can work on them and heal them and transcend them eventually. But where we can really find, the true peace amidst cyclone is right at its center, which is why it was advised for years by ancient sages to always try during eclipse season, spend a little bit more time grounding yourself, centering yourself through practices like yoga, meditation, spending more time in nature perhaps as well, and away from all the devices. While at the same time, it was advised to always stay very cautious when it comes to making decisions, especially impulsive decisions in that period. It was advised that whenever you feel an intense decision of emotional nature emerging from within you during this period, to rather postpone it. Wait until eclipses pass, because it's never just one eclipse. Eclipses always come in pairs, sometimes 3 of them. Wait until eclipses pass, until these cyclonic energies settle, so that you may take a more informed and grounded decision later. So this is just, a little introduction into how can we harness really the energy of the eclipses. I also encourage you, if you would like to learn more about eclipses themselves, how they happen, how can you interpret them also in relation to your individual birth chart. I also made a short workshop on interpreting eclipses that is available on our academy and that you can access anytime if you are inspired to do so. But of course, every eclipse brings very unique energies. And it happens so that eclipse is such a powerful window in time that it tends to affect not just us as individuals, but in some way it does also affect humanity and society at large for the next 6 months. So let's dive a little bit into that and into what is actually unique and special about this upcoming annular solar eclipse, which is going to take place in Dhanishta Nakshatra. Now, first and foremost, this eclipse is going to be quite intense, similarly to the new moon that happened a month ago. You might remember that a month ago we had a new moon, which was an actual conjunction of 5 planets in one sign. This always brings some intensity, because if you have a lot of planets accumulated in the sky and all of them are having a little different agendas, little different desires, little different way to deal with life, first of all, we may feel like a lot of things are really kind of fighting for our attention in this period. While at the same time, it may feel a little overwhelming, like just a lot is going on, a lot requires our attention, and it's not always entirely clear what is the next step. We will have a very similar new moon this time, because during that solar eclipse, we will also experience a conjunction, not just of Sun, Moon, and Rahu, but also Venus and Mercury, 5 planets in sidereal Aquarius during a solar eclipse time. I believe I don't have to tell you that, of course, it will bring some intensity. Especially because the dark fortnight that actually leads us to this solar eclipse is already quite transformative in nature and is actually considered to be one of the most transformative fortnights in entire Vedic year. Now, why is that so? Because one day before that new moon, which also happens to be the eclipse this year, that one day, that Krishna Chaturdashi Tithi, is actually known as Mahashivaratri, the great night of Lord Shiva. And who is Shiva? Shiva is Rudra, first of all, the transformator, the destroyer. He is this force of nature who helps us to really destroy some of the old patterns that are holding us back, so that something new can be born. But the thing is that because of our ego and attachments, we tend to cling so much to the things that feel familiar, to the things that feel comfortable, that whenever that force of transformation is entering our lives, we are not usually welcoming it really so well. It's a similar thing as my Gurudev explained. Imagine that there is a bird that has been raised in a cage from the very beginning, from the smallest. If that bird was raised in a cage, was always fed, was always well taken care of, if you open that cage one day and tell this bird, fly, you are free, the bird will not do that. The bird is too comfortable in that cage, actually. The bird is also so, well taken care of there that he doesn't need to really do anything on its own. And that's the thing, we also live in our own golden cages of our own mind, of our own limitations and limiting beliefs that we are most of the time completely unaware of that they are even there. That whenever that force of transformation that actually tries to free us from those limitations enters our lives, we are also not very keen to exit that cage. So it's worthy to take into consideration and to acknowledge that yes, this entire dark fortnight, by default, even without eclipse involved, is already very transformational in nature. It is sacred to Lord Shiva, it is sacred to Rudra, and it is actually designed to be this time of the Vedic year that is supposed to disrupt the status quo, to disrupt what is familiar, so that actually some of our karmas and limitations may be burned, transcended, and healed. Now, the thing is that even the design of the planets in the sky during that solar eclipse time is going to be quite a significant one. First of all, we will have the meeting of Sun and Moon in Dhanishta Nakshatra in the sidereal Aquarius portion of it. It's worthy to acknowledge that during that eclipse time, we will have 6 planets in total sitting in the 2 signs, Capricorn, there's a Mars exalted, and Aquarius, the 5 planets there, in what we call zodiacal root chakra, or as Sri Yukteswar explained. The 2 signs of Saturn in our birth chart actually represent our root chakra. Having 6 planets there is not a small thing, actually. It's a calling from the universe for us also to shift our awareness to become more grounded. And naturally, when we have a solar eclipse happening in the root chakra, there is so much potential with that to actually transform ourselves from the ground level, from the root level. There's so much potential with that to actually take that knowledge that we might have been learning for years and really put it into practice. Great potential for this. And at the same time, 6 planets, especially with eclipse happening in the zodiacal root chakra, will be also disrupting our sense of stability, our sense of groundedness at the same time. There might be lots of unpredictable situations that will be popping up and challenging us to find a more reliable source of stability in life than just external circumstances. So, naturally speaking, this whole time period may feel quite challenging in this sense. It might feel a little destabilizing too. It's really interesting that both eclipses in the beginning of this year are going to happen on this axis of the root chakra and the third eye chakra, right? The first one will have the 5 planets right now in zodiacal root chakra. The next eclipse will happen in the sign of Leo, which is our third eye chakra. And of course, what does it tell us to do? What does it inspire us to do, really? Is to bridge the gap between the cognitive knowledge, between inspiration that resides on the level of the mind and the actual embodied reality. Balancing what is above, balancing what is below, the mind and the body, the higher and the lower. And I do strongly believe that whenever eclipses of that sort happen, it does not only present a lot of opportunities to the individual, but even to the world at large. Very often when eclipses happen, especially in sidereal Aquarius, we experience a lot of social movements emerging, social reforms and revolutions, because society at large starts changing the way they see things. But of course, every force of transformation always needs to be treated with caution as well. Because you see, that sign in which we'll have the accumulation of 5 planets is also known as the sign of 11 Rudras. Sign of Aquarius, the original 11th house, is also the sign where 11 Rudras, the forces of transformation, dwell. Which is why whenever we have new moon in that sign, right before it, we celebrate Mahashivaratri, the great night of Lord Shiva, where we are kind of confronted also with some of our own dark sides, with some of our own limitations and things that we consciously need to work on and improve. And that force of transformation that Rudra brings can sometimes be volatile too. Especially because this time, during this new moon, not only Sun and Moon will be conjunct in Dhanishta Nakshatra, but on both ends, on both sides of that 5 planetary conjunction in Aquarius, we will have also two cruel planets, Mars exalted in Capricorn, Saturn in Pisces, which creates a Papakartari Yoga on the sign of Aquarius, where 5 planets with lots of intensity are already dwelling. Normally, this can bring certain frustrations, this can bring certain overwhelm. And at the same time, it does bring the opportunities to change. Very often, it brings just enough frustration for us to finally say enough is enough and change something that we really wanted to change maybe since a long time. So again, there's a lot of potential with this time period, but a lot of volatility too. And especially we need to take into account that Lord Shiva also represents the quality of divine anger. We still have Mars experiencing combustion in the sky, which informs us that if any impulsivity, frustrations, irritations will arise in us during this period, we also need to look closely at it, and we might have opportunity to transform it too. Now, a beautiful thing about this solar eclipse is that this whole 5 planetary conjunction in sidereal Aquarius will be also aspected by Jupiter from the sign of Gemini. Jupiter, whenever he casts his benevolent glance on any Rashi, naturally he's casting his blessing as well. He's giving his protection, and he helps us to actually take that situation of great transformation, great inner cyclone, and really find wisdom in it. Find a way to turn it into something really positive. And I believe that this is where the greatest potential for this solar eclipse actually lies. Still, we have a lot of planets in the Aries signs right now, so of course there will be a lot of motion, a lot of things happening, very unpredictable at times. And at the same time, it may bring so much opportunity for us to actually look at different things in our lives with new eyes, with, not really seeing everything in the same way like we always see, but really allowing ourselves to actually take a little different perspective on how things are. So as you can see, there is quite a lot of intensity with the upcoming solar eclipse, with the upcoming new moon, and quite a lot of potential as well. And I believe it is on each and every one of us to what we really do with that energy. How do we stay grounded in the time of great transformation? And remember, if your mind will keep spiraling in this period into some endless vortexes, remember that overthinking might not be really your greatest ally in this period. But whenever there's too many thoughts, rather go on a walk, go for a run, do some yoga, do something with your physical body. That's how you will interrupt and stabilize this pattern, not by feeding it even more. So this tiny little advice can really sometimes make a lot of difference. So I do wish you that during this very transformational fortnight, you make the best of it, and that perhaps you'll be able to utilize this energy of Lord Shiva and Rudra to really manifest some very, very important changes in your life that perhaps you always wanted to. So I wish you a very beautiful solar eclipse time, a beautiful transformational fortnight, and you will hear from me about the upcoming eclipse later. Namaste.